Welcome back for Keeper of the Lost Cities Lodestar, chapters 33 and 34. Thank you so much for being here. If you're not already subscribed, what are you doing? Make sure to subscribe so you never miss a chapter. Give today's video a like, and the question of the day is, let me know if you'd rather have lunch with Sophie or Keith. Chapter 33. I'm on my way, Sophie transmitted to Wylie as she pressed 2 fingers against his right temple. Fitz did the same on his left, and Lynn's water shells splashed their hands as they pressed their consciousness into Wylie's mind. The blackness felt almost solid, like it had hardened into a wall. But when Sophie transmitted, "It's me," the barrier liquefied, letting them drop down deep into the shadows. Wylie's mind grew colder as they fell, his thoughts an icy blur until they landed in a pool of warm light hovering in the nothing. A form emerged from the shadows, growing arms and legs and features, and slowly morphing into a boy. "Hello," he said, offering a shy wave. His twitching hands fiddled with the pin clasped through his light blue cape, a jeweled sun with rays in yellow and orange and red. His face was rounder than Wylie's, his dark hair longer, crowning his head in a neat afro. But she could recognize him through the features. "How old are you right now?" Sophie transmitted. Wylie scratched his chin. 6. "Why is he talking to us as his 6-year-old self?" Fitz transmitted to Sophie. "I think it's a defense mechanism. I'm pretty sure he was 7 or 8 when his dad's mind broke, so I bet he's reverting to a safer, happier time." "I knew you'd understand," 6-year-old Wylie told her. "You know how it feels to have a before and an after." He shuddered with the words, and the tremors triggered a growth spurt, stretching his body taller and broadening his shoulders as his chin squared and his hair shrank to a short crop. He looked like a Shirley teenager, but his eyes looked far older. This was the Wylie who'd lost his father and his mother. "I doubt I'll ever be able to understand everything you've been through," Sophie told him, "but I'm here to help." "Can you help?" he asked. "I'll try. Will you tell me what happened?" Wylie's hands shook so hard his pin ripped off of his cape, vanishing into the darkness. "If you're not ready, we can—" "No," he interrupted. "It's never going to be easier." He buried his face in his hands, and Sophie noticed red blotches forming. "What are you thinking about?" Fitz asked him. "All the things I shouldn't." Wylie scratched at his arms until they streamed with red. "I think we're going too fast," Sophie said as he morphed into the present-day Wylie she'd seen lying unconscious on her old bed, bloody and blistered, thrashing with the agony of his wounds. "Is there any way to bring 6-year-old you back?" Wylie took a shaky breath and closed his eyes, humming a song that sounded like a lullaby. As his wounds closed, and his body shrank and his face rounded out. "Is this better?" 6-year-old Wylie asked. "You tell me," Sophie said. "Does it hurt right now?" "It feels funny, but not like ha-ha funny. More like an itchy tingle. I think I can live with that." "I know this is hard to believe," Sophie told him as he stared at his arms. "But the pain only exists in your memories. When you wake up, everything will be healed, and you'll look exactly the same as before." "I won't be the same, though, will I?" She couldn't lie. Part of the pain would never go away. "But you're a survivor, right?" "Not by choice." "It never is," Fitz told him, "but that only proves how strong you are." "I should have been stronger," Wylie whispered. "I shouldn't have let them take me." "You couldn't have stopped them," Sophie promised. "I tried my hardest, and I couldn't." Wylie nodded slowly. "I didn't give them what they wanted either." "What did they want?" Fitz asked. "If I talk about it, the other me's will take over." "We can handle them," Sophie promised. "And we can help you hold on," Fitz added, as their pockets of space grew brighter and warmer. "I just gave you some extra energy to boost your strength. See how strong you are now?" Wylie flexed his skinny 6-year-old arms, patting the small curve of bicep that shifted. "Okay, I'll try." "You'll do great," Sophie told him. "Think of it like you're telling us a story. Start at the beginning. How did they find you?" I don't know. I was reading in bed when the door burst open, and my room swelled like a tornado. So one of them was a guster, Fitz asked. Must have been. The wind pinned me to the floor, and then I heard people rush in. Did you see them, Sophie asked, or recognize their voices? I couldn't hear much over the wind, and the one who jumped on me must have been a vanisher, because I couldn't see him as he ripped off my registry pendant. Fitz's whole body shook as he transmitted, "That was my brother." Sophie tightened her hold on his hand, wishing she had time to properly comfort him. But they had to focus. "What else do you remember?" she asked Wylie. "I remember kicking and punching and clawing and scratching, but then this white light wrapped around me, and I couldn't move anymore." "That means Rye was there," Fitz transmitted. "He's a psionopath. He must have wrapped you in a force field." "It shocked me if I touched it," Wylie said, "and it trapped me with the drugs. When I breathed, everything went blurry." "So it was just the three of them?" Sophie asked. "No one else?" "Actually, I think there were 4. They said someone was keeping a path open." "Could they have meant the guster?" she asked. "I don't think so. They made it sound like the path was somewhere else, but everything was far away at that point. I remember someone grabbing my feet and dragging me. I don't know how long or how far. Then the warmth pulled me away. After that, I couldn't see. My ears were ringing. Everything smelled too sweet. I wanted to throw up, but I couldn't tell if I was actually awake." "Is that how it was for you?" "Sort of," Sophie thought quietly. "I was gone for a lot longer than you." "How long was I missing?" "We're not totally sure," Fitz said, "but it was less than a day." "Do you know what time they grabbed you?" "No, but I hadn't had breakfast yet." He clutched his middle as his stomach growled. "Do you want Physic to wake you up so you can eat?" Fitz asked. Wylie shook his head. "Awake sounds hard." "It will be at first," Sophie told him. "But it'll get easier every day. Take the time you need to recover. You'll wake up when you're ready." "Is there anything else you remember that might help us?" Fitz asked. "Just the interrogations, and my head stayed mushy for those. The only thought I could hold on to was to wait. I knew they'd make a mistake, and when they did, I'd have to move. It took hours and hours, but they finally burned one of my bonds. It didn't sear all the way through, but it let me shift my hands just enough so that I could wiggle my fingers into the secret pocket in my sleeve, where I keep the crystal that takes me to see my dad. I think I broke my thumb trying to grab it. I heard a snap." He held his left hand, frowning, as the thumb seemed to work perfectly. "But it was worth the pain, because as soon as I had the crystal in my hand, I sparked a ball of light and leaped out of there." "Sparked?" Sophie thought. "Are you a flasher?" "Yeah, same as—" "Who?" Sophie asked when he started trembling. "Same as who?" Wylie scratched hard at his neck. "They kept asking me the same question over and over, no matter how many times I told them I didn't know. Everything was about her." Sophie was about to ask, "Her who?" when she figured it all out on her own. "Your mom?" Wylie shifted back to his surly teenage form. "What did they want to know about her?" she asked. "They thought I was with her when she made her last leap. I kept telling them I wasn't, but they kept burning me over and over and telling me it wouldn't stop until I stopped lying. They didn't get it. She died because I found her too late." Tears streamed down his cheeks as she shifted to the present-day Wylie, screaming through the pain as his wounds reappeared. Fitz tried sending more warmth and energy, but it didn't help, so Sophie tried inflicting. She couldn't find any happiness, but she gave him a soft wave of hope, and Wylie's breathing slowed to raspy breaths. "Sorry," he told her. "I guess I'm not as strong as you thought." "You're stronger," Sophie promised. "You've been through so much." "Too much," Wylie said. "I don't know if I can take any more." "Maybe you won't have to. Mr. Forkel and Granite are planning to erase the worst memories." "No, they can't!" "I know it's weird to imagine them rooting around in your head, but why live with the nightmares? Because there might be something important. You can't let them erase anything, Sophie. Promise me you'll stop them." "Okay," she said when he kept repeating the plea. I promise." "You have to stick to that," Wylie begged as he shifted back to his 6-year-old form. "You owe me that." "I know," Sophie said. "And maybe you should rest now. I think your mind could use a break." He faded into the shadows. "I'll try. But I need you to do something for me. I need you to look into my mom's death. I don't think it was an accident anymore." Chapter 34. "This is everything we know about the day Cyra faded away," Mr. Forkle said, holding up a golden orb the size of a gumball. "All the evidence we gathered suggested her death was nothing more than an unexpected tragedy." He spun the top and bottom in opposite directions until they clicked like a combination lock, then handed it to Dex. Sophie and Fitz had brought everyone back to the boys' old treehouse to make sure their conversation wouldn't disturb Wylie, and so Biana and Tam wouldn't miss the update. Only Physic had stayed behind, wanting to run additional tests to triple-check the pain they'd seen Wylie battling truly lived only in his memories. "Do you always carry that on you?" Sophie asked Mr. Forkle, wondering how he fit so much in his pockets, and why she'd never noticed him carrying so many weird things before. "Of course," he said. "It's similar to the counselor's caches, except for it holds the things I need to remember, not the secrets I want to forget." "So then, there's probably all kinds of info about Sophie on here, right?" Dex asked. "There are files on all of you, and before anyone gets any ideas, let me assure you that I'm the only one capable of accessing that information. So can we focus on the fact that young Mr. Endall has given us an urgent project?" "Right," Dex said, squeezing the top and bottom of the sphere to make a hologram flash from the center. Everyone scooted closer to squint at the projection, which started with a family picture. Prentice looked like he'd been mid-laugh, his eyes focused on his wife, whose auburn hair glowed wild and red where it caught the sun. Between them was the same 6-year-old boy Sophie had spoken to in Wylie's memories, and now she could see what an even mix he was of both of his parents. He had his mom's smile and a dash of her creaminess to his skin, and his dad's hair and eyes and nose. "They were so happy," she whispered. "They were," Tiergan said, wiping his eyes. Dex twisted the gadget again, revealing a single document. "This isn't much to go on." "I know," Mr. Forkle said. "Cyra was alone for her final leap. Wylie found her some time after, and it was impossible to tell how long she'd been there. She was unconscious, barely breathing. Wylie hailed Elwyn for help, but the damage was beyond anyone's skills. By the time Elwyn called Alden to search Cyra's memories, her mind had grown too weak to recover anything. The last of her form faded not long after. All they could do was watch." Sophie blinked back tears as she imagined it. In order to light leap, their bodies had to break down into particles small enough to be carried by the light, and the only way to reform was to hold the pieces together, either with a bracelet-style gadget called a nexus, which all younger elves were required to wear until their mental strength reached a proven level, or with the power of their own concentration. If you lost too much of yourself. There were worse ways to die, of course. In fact, out of all of Sophie's brushes with death, fading had been the most pleasant. It started with a shocking pain, but the agony soon eased, replaced with an irresistible, rushing warmth that pulled like a gentle breeze, begging her to follow it to a world of shimmering and sparkle and color and freedom. But it was death all the same. "Wylie tried to reach me after it happened," Tiergan said, turning to stare out the windows. "He hailed me 4 times before he gave up and let Elwyn hail Alden. Maybe, if I'd answered, we could have recovered something from Cyra's mind." "Do we know where Cyra leapt from?" Sophie asked. "She told Wylie she was going back to Mysterium, which matched with her registry pendant record," Mr. Forkle said. "She went to take an inventory of her stall. Cyra had a small sidewalk booth where she sold custom hair ribbons," Tiergan explained. "It wasn't as fancy as the boutique she had before Prentice was arrested. But very few nobles wanted to support the wife of a criminal, so she'd moved to a working-class city. I went to that stall," Biana said. "My dad took me when I was little. I still have the combs he bought me. And I remember being surprised when we went to Mysterium instead of Atlantis." "Alden was always trying to find small ways to assist Cyra," Tiergan muttered. As if buying hair clips could make up for destroying her family. The words sliced through the room, too dull to draw any blood, but Fitz and Bianca winced all the same. I'm sorry, Tiergan told them. I just hate having to think about this again. Wylie's been through so much already, and I keep trying to make it up to him, but no matter what I do... He pounded his fist against the window. Sophie crossed the room and rested a hand on his arm. Tiergan wasn't a touchy-feely kind of person, but he placed his hand over hers. She wished she could guarantee that everything would be okay, that they'd find a way to solve all of this. Instead, she told him, Wylie's strong. He is. He has to be, just like you. He squeezed her hand tighter before slowly pulling away. I suppose the one small relief is that Prentice is unconscious through all of this. I've been thinking the same thing, Mr. Vorkel said. We cannot bring him back to life when his son is in danger and his wife's murder is unsolved. He'd never survive it. Am I the only one who doesn't understand how murder by light leap is possible? Tim asked. An accident, I get, but aren't we the ones in control of our consciousness? That's what I thought too, Sophie admitted. Otherwise, wouldn't we wear nexuses our whole lives? We remove our nexuses because technology should never replace the natural power of our mind, Mr. Forkel told them. And because we're supposed to belong to a society where people would never violate the safety of another. But the sad truth is, if someone were to cause Cyra severe pain right as she was leaping, it could have broken her concentration during the crucial transformation. Or if someone shined a secondary light in her path, Tiergan added, her consciousness would have divided without her realizing. Part of her would have followed one beam, the rest the other, and she wouldn't have had enough of herself left in either place. Lynn curled her arms around herself. That's really scary. It is, Mr. Forkel agreed. Safety is an illusion. It exists only when we, as a society, agree to enforce it. But, theoretically, any situation could turn violent if someone decided to treat it that way. During my time with the humans, I witnessed many horrors that were the result of one individual or a small group choosing to violate the trust we all put in each other. The time is coming when we as a species will have to decide if we are going to stray down the same dark path. But I think I've gotten off track. My point is that yes, sadly, murder by light leap and many other unimaginable means is possible. Okay, but the streets of Mysterium are always crammed with people, Dex reminded them. Wouldn't someone have noticed something weird going on when Cyra leaped? People rarely notice things they don't expect to see, Tiergan told him. They're too distracted by their own perception of reality. Did anyone see her final leap happen? Sophie asked. Not that I could find, Mr. Forkel said. So then she could have wandered to a more isolated place before she leaped, Sophie pointed out. Maybe she had a secret meeting in the area where the council stores my human family's old things. It seems pretty deserted when Counselor Tarek took me. Or she wasn't in Mysterium at all, Fitz added. We all know registry feeds can be altered. Did anyone actually see her there? They did, Mr. Forkel said. Several people saw her sorting stocks in her stall. The list ends here, Dex jumped in. Is that the people who saw her? Yes, Mr. Forkel said. Why? Morella's mom is on it. She pointed to the name Caprice Raddick, glowing among a dozen other names. Caprice was one of the more memorable interviews, Mr. Forkel said quietly. She seemed to be struggling quite a bit that day. Morella's mother had suffered a traumatic brain injury a few years earlier, and despite Elwyn's best efforts, she'd battled unstable emotions ever since. She took elixirs to manage the condition, but sometimes they weren't enough. What did she say? Sophie asked. Mostly, she kept mumbling that Cyra should have been more careful, I assumed she meant careful during the leap. That did make sense, but now that we know her death might not be an accident, do you think she could have meant something else? Sophie asked. If it were anyone other than Caprice Reddick, I might be ready to wander down that path, Tiergan told her. But I've seen Caprice on her bad days. It's not her fault, and she tries her best. But reason and rationality abandon her. And when you consider that she's been saying these things after hearing the devastating news about Cyra, I think it needs to be taken with an especially potent grain of salt. I still wonder if Cyra went somewhere after Mysterium and her feed was altered, Fitz mumbled. It just seems too random that she went to count hair ribbons and ended up dead. But who would have altered the feed? Tiergan asked. We know it wasn't us, and Cyra was a flasher, not a technopath. And if the Neverseen were involved with her death, why would they need to interrogate Wylie? Maybe she was working on something important for them, and they were hoping she might have shared certain key information with him before she died, Tam suggested. But then why go after him now? Dex asked. Why not interrogate him right after it happened? They might not have wanted anyone to know that Cyra's death wasn't an accident, Lynn said. Or it could have been something to do with whatever they're planning through the Lodestar initiative, Piana mumbled. We could debate theories all day, Mr. Forkle told them, but it won't bring us any closer to the truth. So what's your plan? Sophie asked. I have no plan. He sounded more tired than Sophie had ever heard. Gethin might know something about all this, right? Fitz asked. That's true, Sophie realized. And after Wylie's attack, I'm sure the council is going to be very motivated to find out what happened, so we're not going to tell the council about this, Mr. Forkle interrupted. They do not make wise decisions when they're frightened, and learning that one of their citizens was captured and brutalized from one of the world's most secure buildings will send them into a frenzy. The last time that happened, they declared us their number one enemy instead of focusing on the Neverseen. And let's not forget about the ability restricting circlet they ordered Miss Foster to wear. Dex winced. The circlet had been his invention, but he'd never thought the council would use it on Sophie. Working against the council hasn't gone well for us either, Sophie reminded him. And if Gethin is not the grand solution you believe him to be, Mr. Forkle snapped. He turned away, tearing his hands through his gray hair. I know you want to believe. You said he was a priority, Sophie interrupted. I did. But circumstances have changed. Now our priority must be protecting Wylie, and that includes sparing him the stress of becoming a public spectacle. Surely you remember what it felt to be like the girl who was taken. Would you wish that on him, after everything he's been through? I'm sure the council would keep this quiet if we asked, Piana said quietly. All we can be sure of, Miss Vacker, is that we can't be sure how the council will respond. So, we must err on the side of caution. We must regroup and strategize, and we'll wait to act until we have a plan that is in Wylie's best interest. Sophie glanced at Tiergan. You really think we should waste time sitting around, lying and hiding things? Tiergan turned out the window, staring at the gently swaying trees. I think our next course should be up to Wylie. He's the one who has to endure the consequences. Sophie headed for the door. Okay, I'll ask him. Mr. Forkle blocked her. You will not be troubling him with these questions until he's fully recovered. But that could be days. In the grand scheme of things, that's a very small amount of time. His tone left no room for arguing. We have to do something, Sophie insisted. Sneaking into Luminaria without the council's permission sounded impossible, especially with how little they knew about the security in the fortress. And she couldn't imagine she'd be able to communicate telepathically with Lady Gisela in an ogre prison, or that Lady Gisela would actually tell her anything if she could. So where did that leave them? Keeps trying to steal Vincent's cash, she said, after a few seconds. Do you think that might have any information on it about Cyra? If it does, why would they need to go after Wylie? Fitz asked. And while we're talking about Keith, Tam jumped in, his silver eyes focusing on Sophie. I know that you're going to get mad at me for saying this, but before we keep trusting him, we need to find out what he knows. And I don't just mean the little bits he keeps telling you during your nightly flirt sessions. That's not what they are, Sophie snapped. Maybe not for you, but I doubt the guy who calls himself the president of the Foster fan club is going to have a bunch of private convos with you and not use the chance to try to keep winning you over. Winning me what? Sophie asked. That's not... What? Not important, Tam said. But you know what is? Making sure he's not involved with horrors like this. Can you honestly tell me you're not worried he was somehow part of what they did to Wylie? Or that his whole warning about the danger to your family was actually a lie to keep everyone distracted from what really happened? Sophie rubbed the knot under her ribs. I know you don't trust Keith, and I know you do, Tam interrupted. I get that you two are really, really close. They're not that close, Fitz mumbled. Sure, Tam said. All I'm saying is, we need to know exactly who we're dealing with, and not just what he says. We need to know what he's hiding, and thinking, and planning. You want me to search his mind? Sophie guessed. Tam nodded. I know telepaths have rules, but Wylie deserves protection way more than Keith deserves privacy. But I don't actually know if I can search his mind from far away, Sophie argued. Having a telepathic conversation is different from probing memories. For that, I usually need physical contact. She had been able to search Prentice's mind through the walls of his cell in exile, but there was a big difference between stretching her mind to someone a few feet away and someone who was probably on the other side of the planet. You'd have a better chance if I help, Fitz reminded her. Can I be there too? Bianna asked. I'm pretty sure all of us want to be there, Tam told her. You're all welcome to crash here tonight, if it makes it any easier. Unfortunately, that's not an option, Mr. Forkle informed them. Those with registry pendants need to get back to the lost cities quite soon. I've had our technopath scrambling our feet, but it's a slapdash cover at best, and if we stay too much longer, the council might be able to track us to this hideout. Besides, if you decide to follow this plan, Miss Foster and Mr. Vacker are going to need the full weight of their consciousness to have even the slightest chance of achieving this rather impossible task. I'm sure they'll be happy to provide a full report when they're finished. I don't have an imparter, Sophie reminded him. I'll get you another, Mr. Forkle said. And with that, the matter seemed to be decided. All that was left to do was go home, and wait, and hope Keith didn't let them down. That concludes chapters 33 and 34. I'll see you tomorrow for 35 and 36. Bye!